Good morning, all of you.
Good morning,
Good
ma'am.
morning,
Good
ma'am.
morning, ma'am.
Okay. So you are able to join, but you could not join through app, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Maybe the course name, instead of course name as molecular biology, I wanted to give the topic. I just tried this time. That could have been the reason or what, I'm not sure. Anyway, let's just go ahead with this class. Later we will see about it. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, today we are going to discuss about flow of genetic information and central dogma of molecular biology. This schematic representation shows the flow of genetic information. Probably in the year 1950, Francis Crick, he was the scientist who proposed that the genetic information flows in one direction. That means the flow of genetic information is unidirectional. This concept was proposed by Francis Crick in the year of 1950, which means that DNA makes RNA, RNA makes protein. This concept later, it has become known as central dogma of molecular biology. So that time when this concept was proposed, not much evidence was there that the genetic information flows in one direction. But now we all know that broadly this central dogma of molecular biology is correct. So what does it mean exactly? We all know that DNA is the molecule that carries the genetic information. This DNA is transcribed to RNA. Okay, if it is protein encoding gene, it is transcribed to mRNA. This process is known as transcription. Then this RNA, if you look at the sequence information of RNA and DNA, the sequence remains the same, except that all the T's which are present in DNA, they are replaced by U's, isn't it? So the genetic information which is present in DNA is transcribed to mRNA. Then the message which is present in mRNA will be translated into protein following the genetic code. That means this message is translated into protein by the process called translation as specified by genetic code. So this process is called translation. So basically the central dogma is DNA makes RNA, RNA makes protein. As I told you, though that time not much experimental evidence was there. Later, it proves to be same. That means the basic scheme remains same, though there are certain modifications that had been added to the basic scheme of this central dogma. So in addition to DNA, to RNA, to protein, we can also include the process of replication to this central dogma. So what is this process of replication? The genetic information which is present in DNA is duplicated by the process known as replication. So what are the other modifications that are added to the basic scheme of this central dogma? There are certain viruses, they contain RNA as their genetic material, not the DNA. So when they contain RNA as their genetic material, can you tell me any example of virus containing RNA as their genome?
HIV.
HIV, right? HIV is the retrovirus which contains RNA as its genetic material. So what happens in HIV? First, the uh, RNA is converted into double-stranded DNA by a process known as reverse transcription. RNA is uh, converted into double-stranded DNA by the process known as reverse transcription, and this conversion is catalyzed by the enzyme reverse transcriptase, and this reverse transcriptase is encoded by the viral genome itself. So once this double-stranded DNA is synthesized, this is the intermediary molecule in its life cycle. So this double-stranded DNA that gets incorporated into the host genome. So this reverse transcription mechanism also can be included in this central dogma. There are also other classes of viruses. There also the genetic material is RNA, but there is no formation of intermediary double-stranded DNA molecule as we see in case of HIV. There what happens is the RNA is directly copied into another copy of RNA, which is the process is known as RNA replication. Can you give me any example of such RNA virus where the genome is replicated by the process of RNA replication? Our popular coronavirus is RNA virus, definitely. And that's the mechanism how the RNA replication, how the genetic material is replicated by the process RNA replication. There is no formation of the intermediary double-stranded DNA molecule as we see in case of other RNA viruses like your HIV. So even this RNA replication can be included to the basic scheme of your central dogma of molecular biology. And what happens in certain organisms, once the RNA is transcribed from DNA, there could be some changes in the RNA molecule. That means the sequence does not remain same as it is transcribed from DNA. After transcription, there could be some changes that can happen to RNA. This process is known as RNA editing. So RNA editing is also incorporated into the basic scheme of this central dogma. But as far as known so far, there is no evidence that protein could either specify a RNA molecule or DNA molecule. So the translation step still remains unidirectional. So this is about flow of genetic information and which is known as central dogma of molecular biology. Quickly, I had given all these points once again. As I mentioned, Crick was the person who suggested that there was unidirectional flow of genetic information, which means that from DNA through RNA to protein, the genetic information flows. That means DNA makes RNA makes protein. This is known as central dogma of molecular biology. And that time when it was proposed without much evidence for the individual steps. But now we understood that the broad thrust of this central dogma is correct. Though there are certain modifications, we can include to the basic scheme of this central dogma. As I explained, the primary route that remains from DNA to RNA to protein, both in prokaryotes and eukaryotes, the DNA is transcribed to RNA molecule. That means the messenger RNA molecule. This contains the same sequence information except the U's are present in place of T's. Then the message which is present in mRNA is translated into protein sequence as per the genetic code. Then the other process that can be added to the central dogma is the DNA replication, where two daughter DNA molecules are formed by the duplication of the genetic information which is present in DNA molecule. There are also few exceptions which are found to the basic scheme that had been identified. As I mentioned, there are number of classes of viruses. They contain the genome consisting RNA, not the DNA. One such example is retroviruses, where you have the specific example HIV. As you all know, this is the causative agent of AIDS disease. So here the single-stranded RNA is, the single-stranded RNA is converted into double-stranded DNA. And then once this double-stranded DNA is formed, it gets inserted into the genome of the host cell. As we all know, this process is reverse transcription. The enzyme that catalyzes this reverse transcription is reverse transcriptase, and this is encoded by viral genome. And there are also other examples of viruses where the RNA genome is copied directly into RNA, which is known as RNA replication. So here the difference is that there is no formation of double-stranded intermediate DNA molecule. Examples include, for such classes of viruses, coronavirus and hepatitis C virus. And there are no evidences so far showing that protein could specify either RNA or DNA sequence. So the translation step of this central dogma that appears to be still unidirectional. There is no change to that part of or to that step of central dogma. And certain organisms where the sequence of mRNA is altered after it is transcribed from the DNA, this process is known as RNA editing. So that is about central dogma. In university exams, many times it has been asked for 5 marks. So you can give that diagrammatic or schematic representation of that central dogma with all the modifications that had been identified later and incorporated to the basic scheme. And then you can explain all that information, whatever we discuss now. Now we will also see the outline of prokaryotic and eukaryotic gene expression, focusing on the similarities and differences between these two, I mean prokaryotic as well as eukaryotic gene expression. So every step, whatever we discuss here, we will be dealing in detail in the later part of the syllabus. But now here, as we are discussing about the central dogma, let's discuss the outline of this prokaryotic and eukaryotic gene expression, highlighting the similarities and differences between these two mechanisms. In prokaryotes, the transcription is initiated by the enzyme RNA polymerase. And this enzyme, this starts the transcription at a sequence known as promoter. What is this promoter? Promoter is the DNA sequence which starts the RNA synthesis, that means transcription. And the transcription, if it begins at the promoter sequence, and it will be terminated at another specific sequence called terminator. And the region between this promoter and terminator is the region which will be transcribed. And this region is called transcribed region. And we all know this is called transcription. So basically RNA polymerase initiates transcription at promoter sequence. Once the RNA is transcribed, the mRNA which is synthesized might have coding sequences for one or more proteins. So this mRNA should be able to encode either one or more proteins. The mRNA which is capable of encoding more than one protein is called polycistronic mRNA. And the DNA sequence which is transcribed to polycistronic mRNA is called operon. I'm sure all this terminology is not new for you. Okay, so once this mRNA is formed, each coding sequence will have a start codon, which is usually AUG, and then a stop codon, and it also contains ribosome binding site. So each coding sequence will be translated into protein by binding to the ribosomes, and where the ribosomes bind at a specific region called ribosome binding site. So ribosomes are required for the translation to take place, and they bind to the ribosome binding site. And during the process of translation, there is also involvement of tRNAs, which is transfer RNAs. They are involved in delivering the specific amino acids during the synthesis of proteins as specified by the genetic code. So this is how the mRNA will be translated into proteins in prokaryote. So basically, RNA polymerase initiates transcription, and there will be the synthesis of mRNA that could contain more than uh, one protein coding sequence. So it is polycistronic in nature. Then this mRNA, and what are all the sequences that are present in mRNA? There will be a start codon, stop codon, ribosome binding site, right? So which can undergo translation by making use of ribosomes and tRNAs, and then there will be the synthesis of proteins. As I mentioned, enzyme RNA polymerase transcribes a gene in case of prokaryotes from the promoter sequence. This promoter is the sequence in the DNA which specifies the start of transcription, and it will go up to the terminator. Terminator is the sequence which specifies the end of transcription. Then the resulting mRNA that contains regions which code for one or more proteins. So it is called polycistronic mRNA. Then the corresponding region which is encoding it in the DNA, it is called operon. I hope you guys are able to follow. Operon is the DNA sequence which encodes the polycistronic mRNA. Then the coding regions of mRNA are translated into proteins by ribosomes. As I told you, these ribosomes, they bind to mRNA at the ribosome binding site, and after binding, they translate the message into amino acid sequence from the start codon, which is usually AUG, to the stop codon by using tRNAs. These tRNAs, they deliver the specific amino acids in the form of amino acyl tRNAs as specified by the genetic code. So now let's look at the eukaryotic gene expression. Here also eukaryotic gene, I expect you all to know that the difference between prokaryotic and eukaryotic genes. Prokaryotic genes, usually they are continuous in nature. But whereas in case of eukaryotes, the coding sequences of these genes are interrupted by non-coding sequences called introns. So one particular gene of eukaryotes can contain more than one coding sequences. The coding sequences of these eukaryotic genes are called exons, right? So otherwise, the remaining procedure is same when it comes to the gene expression. So here also, the genes undergo the process transcription, but here the enzyme involved is any one of the 3 RNA polymerases. Depending upon the type of gene, in case of eukaryotes, there are 3 different genes involved in transcription. If it is rRNA, RNA polymerase, if it is rRNA gene, RNA polymerase 1 is the enzyme involved in transcription. If it is protein encoding gene, then the transcription is carried out by RNA polymerase 2. Similarly, the tRNA genes are transcribed by RNA polymerase 3. So here this particular scheme mentions about RNA polymerase 2, which means that this is the gene we are talking about, the gene encoding the protein. So that's why the enzyme involved is RNA polymerase 2. So here also the sequence at which the RNA transcription starts is promoter sequence. So when the RNA transcription goes on and it ends till the terminator sequence and mRNA is formed. But here, after the mRNA is synthesized, we don't call it as mature mRNA, which means that the mRNA synthesized here is not ready to be translated. That is why we call it as pre-mRNA. This pre-mRNA undergoes several processing steps, and then it is converted into mRNA, which is mature mRNA, and this mature mRNA is ready to be translated. And as we all know, in case of eukaryotes, we have the nucleus, defined nucleus is there, and the transcription takes place in the nucleus. And the RNA processing also takes place in the nucleus. Once it is processed, then the mature mRNA gets transported from the nucleus to the cytoplasm. And as you all know, the translation takes place in the cytoplasm of the cell. All right. So here, as I told you, the eukaryotic genes, in addition to the coding sequences that are exon, there are also intervening non-coding sequences called introns. So in the pre-mRNA, in addition to the exons, we also have non-coding sequences, introns. So what happens? These non-coding sequences need to be sliced out, and then these exons will be joined together. This process by which the non-coding intron sequences will be removed and the exons will be joined together is called splicing. Am I audible to you? Students, am I audible to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I'm getting the message that my internet is slow. That's the reason I just want to check once. All right. So once the pre-mRNA is formed, definitely it undergoes splicing mechanism. And there is also another processing called capping. At the 5' end, there is a formation of cap. And at the 3' end, there will be addition of poly A tail, that is called polyadenylation. So all these things are together called RNA processing, by which pre-mRNA will be converted into mature mRNA. So one thing is splicing, where the non-coding intron regions will be spliced out and exon regions will be joined together. Then capping, where at the 5' end, uh, cap structure will be added, and at the 3' end, poly A tail will be added, which is called polyadenylation. The purpose of this cap at the 5' end and poly A tail at the 3' end is in order to increase the stability of mRNA. So comparatively, the eukaryotic mRNA is more stable than prokaryotic mRNA, one thing. And one more difference what you can note here, it will be able to encode only one protein. As we have seen in case of prokaryotes, the mRNA cannot encode more than one protein. So there we called it as polycistronic mRNA. But here, in case of eukaryote, it is monocistronic mRNA. So the process by which mRNA is converted into protein is called translation. Here also we require ribosomes and amino acid tRNAs. But one thing is that once the processing is done, after the mature mRNA is formed, that gets transported into cytoplasm, because cytoplasm is the place where we have the ribosomes and the entire machinery required for translation is available, so that the translation can take place in order to synthesize the protein. So this is the scheme that explains the gene expression in case of eukaryotes. So quickly to once again to revise, in eukaryotes, transcription that takes place in nucleus and translation takes place in cytoplasm. Messenger RNAs are consequent, they are comparatively longer lived, because there are certain structural features like cap at the 5' end and poly A tail at the 3' end. The transcribed pre-mRNAs are synthesized by one of the 3 RNA polymerases. I've mentioned what are these 3 different types of RNA polymerases. And these eukaryotic mRNAs, they encode only one protein, which is why they are called as monocistronic. These mRNAs or pre-mRNAs are modified in the nucleus by the capping at the 5' end and addition of polyatyl at the 3' end, which will increase the stability of the mRNA molecule. And as I explained, in case of most of the eukaryotic genes, the protein encoding sections are intervened or interrupted by the intervening sequences, which are known as introns. So the introns which are present in this pre-mRNA, they should be removed in order to produce the continuous protein encoding sequence. That means the joined exons. And this process is known as splicing. The splicing is carried out by RNA protein complexes, which are known as small nuclear, ribonucleoproteins. Small nuclear ribonucleoproteins, SNRNPs, are the molecules which are involved in the splicing mechanism. All these modifications, RNA processing mechanisms, we are going to study in detail in the later chapters of molecular biology. The mature mRNAs are then transported from the nucleus to the cytoplasm, where they will be translated into proteins. So this is all I wanted to discuss in today's class. So what I have discussed is central dogma of molecular biology, which explains that the flow of genetic information is unidirectional, and we have looked at each step of this central dogma, that is transcription, translation, replication, reverse transcription, RNA replication, RNA editing. So to the basic scheme, several modifications had been incorporated in the later time. Then after that, we have also looked at the outline of prokaryotic and eukaryotic gene expression. Basically, we looked at the similarities and differences between these two mechanisms. Okay, so as I mentioned, so far in the university exams, the flow of genetic information or central dogma had been asked for 5 marks, but it can be asked for 15 marks also. We never know, and we cannot restrict ourselves that this concept is for 5 marks or this concept is for 15 marks. If it is asked for 15 marks, including the prokaryotic and eukaryotic gene expressions, whatever we have studied, that can be included along with this central dogma, and it can be explained in detail, which will be the suitable answer for 15 marks.